This week, we see the stumbling of the Union matched only by the incompetence of the Confederacy. This would be hilarious if it weren't for the loss of life, but sadly, the mental deficiency of commanders is costly. It's the Red River Campaign, and blood makes that expedition earn its name. Let's start this week with a move from Davis I actually support. I know, shocking. He commutes the execution of deserters to merely imprisonment. This is an act of mercy, despite my loathing for his cause. I'm glad Davis isn't wholly evil. Before we get into the week's main action, let's go through the 16th. First, the Devil Force is loose again, raiding through Tennessee. He breaks the railroads at Tullahoma. Then Major General Sterling Price took control of the Confederate District of Arkansas before Lieutenant General Theophilus Holmes led it, but he was bullied into resignation. Seriously, he was insulted because of his age and therefore left the command. He was willing to take bullets, but some jokes are just too far. Then there's the Richmond Examiner, which reports on General Joseph E. Johnston's report, which blamed Lieutenant General John C. Pemberton for the loss at Vicksburg. He had ordered Pemberton to concentrate his forces before he was laid to siege, and he was ordered to disengage before being besieged. Pemberton surrendered only moments before Johnston would save him.
General Joseph Eggleston Johnston's hindsight was always better than his foresight.
Now for the tragic comedy that is the Red River Campaign. Instead of the linking of Union forces, the idiotic Major General Nathaniel P. Banks slogs his army through rain and mud, dragging the artillery through the worst paths imaginable. But I promised you ineptitude on both sides. The 13th has Admiral Porter drop off a Union army in the morning at Slimesport, but their goal is to take Fort DeRussy, built in 1862 by the Confederates. It's designed to defend the lower entrance to the Red River. Finding minimal resistance, they chase rebel skirmishers to the bottom of the breastworks. As night falls, the Union and Confederacy settle into camp. The Federal force is the detachment of the Army of the Tennessee under Brigadier General Andrew J. Smith, who sends forward the division under the competent General Joseph A. Mower. Now, where is that rebel stupidity? As Smith brought 10,000 men to this battle, the rebels brought 350. Yes, 350 to defend the Red River. These are under Lieutenant Colonel William Byrd. The rebels open fire and the Union charges the parapets. After 20 minutes, it's an American victory. 48 killed or wounded for the Union. The rebels surrendered. The exact number is up to debate, but the entire regiment is lost and Byrd is captured. The actual score is the artillery. 2 9-inch Dahlgren guns, 1 rifled 32-pounder gun, 1 32-pounder smoothbore gun, 2 32-pounder carronades, 2 24-pounder long guns, and 2 iron 6-pounder guns. A job well done, but you'll never guess what Smith sees. General Edmund Kirby Smith of the Confederacy advancing towards a fort he once thought impregnable. The next day, the Union takes back the initiative of incompetence, and Admiral Porter sends 3 vessels to capture Confederate ships. They arrive half an hour late. But not to be outdone, one rebel steamer runs aground and is burnt by her crew. Now for an actual victory. On the 16th, Admiral Porter reaches Alexandria, Louisiana. Lieutenant Colonel Selfridge occupies the town without a shot fired. Finally, on the 18th, General Smith sinks a steamer to block the upper part of the Red River. He orders the rest of the stream to be torpedoed. Let's now look at Louisiana's government. On the 13th, President Lincoln tells the governor, Michael Hahn, to seat very intelligent African Americans in the convention of the state. 2 days later, Abraham Lincoln turned over all military governorship to Hahn, instructing him to not take charge of any churches as such. Lincoln has complete faith in the reconstruction of Louisiana. For more actions of our chief executive, let's turn back to the 14th. The Navy has often been overlooked in this war, much to the nation's detriment. Lincoln orders 200,000 men drafted for the Navy to rectify the lack of staffing.
An adequate reserve force for all contingencies.
On the 17th, Lincoln wrote to Representative John A. J. Creswell, a Maryland radical Republican and a strong supporter of abolition.
It needs not to be a secret that I wish success to emancipation in Maryland. It would aid much to end the rebellion.
The final action from President Lincoln is a speech at the Sanitary Commission Fair.
If all that has been said by orators and poets since the creation of the world in praise of women applied to the women of America, it will not do them justice for their conduct during this war.
Abolition, praise of women, and economic support, Lincoln is moving America forward into the future, and he has my full support. From the Commander-in-Chief to the General-in-Chief, Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant arrives in Nashville, Tennessee. He meets with General William Tecumseh Sherman They take a train to Cincinnati, Ohio, where they lock themselves in a room and start talking.
Headquarters will be in the field, until further orders will be with the Army of the Potomac.
Sherman officially took over the military division of the Mississippi. The plan is simple. General Joseph E. Johnston is at Dalton, Georgia, with his army of Tennessee. That is where Sherman will be. The military division will be where the enemy is. And where the enemy isn't, they will occupy. The West belongs to the United States of America, and freedom will ring once more. Down to Texas. The 18th sees an embarrassing battle at Loretto. 42 rebels repulse 200 Union soldiers, killing 2 of the Federals, suffering no casualties. What a shame. Let's end on a high note to cleanse ourselves of that shame. In Arkansas, the majority of voters passed the pro-Union Constitution for the state, including the end of slavery. 25% of the population are enslaved, but no more. Over 100,000 men, women, and children are finally recognized as the human beings they always were. Sickles time, and Meade arrives in Washington.
Greatly surprised to find the whole town talking of certain grave charges.
The battle between Meade and Sickles won't be behind closed doors, but in the public forum. Minnesota Republican Senator Morton Wilkinson lumps McClellan and Meade into the clumsiness category.
I believe he is a patriotic man. I believe he is as pure a gentleman as there is in the country. I believe he has the honor of the country at heart. I believe that he means and wishes to do his duty. But it's none of that blundering audacity of Grant, which will enable him to win battles and to crown his army with glory.
This sets the tone for the Joint Committee's interrogation of the Army of the Potomac commander. Senator Benjamin Wade does not give him a single chance for Meade to prepare. He walks in with no papers to reference, telling him he just wants a record of the Battle of Gettysburg.
He was very civil, denied there were any charges against me.
Unaware of the committee's intentions, he's surprised by Secretary of War Edwin Stanton telling him that Sickles and Wade are out to get him.
The only evil that will result is the spreading over the country certain mysterious whisperings of dreadful deficiencies on my part, the truth concerning which will never reach the thousandth part of those who hear the lies. It's a melancholy state of affairs, however, when persons like Sickles and Doubleday can, by distorting and twisting facts, giving a false coloring, induce the press and public for a time, and almost immediately take away the character of a man who, up to that time, had stood high in their estimation.
Meade demands to testify again before the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, this time bringing all the documentation he can.
Meade may have been a political novice, but appeared to be learning the game quickly. Satisfy every member of this committee that there was no intention on my part to withdraw my army from my position at Gettysburg.
Unfortunately for George Gordon, he's bringing facts to politics. It's like bringing a peace offering to a serial killer. The New York Herald, Historicus, a pseudonym once used by Benjamin Franklin, wrote,
He issued a plan of campaign on Wednesday, July 1st, directing his whole army to retire and to take up the defensive on Pipe Creek, almost at the moment that his left flank was fiercely struggling with the right wing of the enemy. 2 p.m. came, and yet no orders. Why was this? Other orders than those expected by General Sickles were, it appears, in preparation at headquarters. It has since been stated upon unquestionable authority that General Meade had decided upon a retreat. That an order to withdraw from the position held by our enemy was penned by his Chief of Staff, General Butterfield, though happily its promulgation never took place. It's on record in the Adjutant General's office. Meade finally awakened to the fact which he treated with such indifference when pressed on him by Sickles in the morning that our left was the assailable point, not the key to our position. For he began to pour in reinforcements, whose presence in the beginning of the action would have saved thousands of lives. The preservation of our position on the left was due to the repeated warnings of the sagacious officer General Sickles.
Historicus then moves on to the failure of Meade to launch an attack on Lee post-Gettysburg.
Why it did not take place the country has never yet understood. General Meade in his report gives no explanation. Had General Meade been more copious in his report and less reserved as to his own important acts, the necessity for this communication would not have existed.
This is a bombshell, a watershed event in this struggle. Historicus's words are published to 135,000 people. The Sickles-Meade conflict is now public. That's where the week ends. And what to say other than this war became a race to the bottom. Rebels left a central fortress to be defended by 350 men. The Union is moving slowly, and its commanders are infighting which could be considered plagiarism of the Confederacy. I honestly don't know which is worse, the Meade-Sickles conflict or Jefferson Davis's relationship with anyone. Well, it's the entire Civil Week by Week team here. And yes, I'm back in St. Louis. With the promotion of Grant, the final major move to what I would call the Civil War we know has been made. And while it will still continue, I just want you to know how proud I am of myself and more this entire community for being with me every step of the way. I hope to see you next week.